Well, let me move on to the other big story, which actually broke on the India development debate last evening. We tackled it to some extent, which is the 30% cap on transactions based on the UPI platform, which were put into place yesterday. Now, this has come at a very interesting and important time. It's come at a time when UPI transactions crossed 2 billion in the last month. It has come at a time when WhatsApp Pay has finally got the green signal, and it effectively puts a limit on third-party apps who are giving these payment options based on the UPI platform. Now, a couple of big questions over here. Can you really implement this? How do you do that? Because currently in this market between Google Pay and Phone Pay, they have over 70% of the market. So they will have a couple of years to bring down their number of transactions and number of customers. Would that affect reliability of transactions in any way? Do you need to put this 30% cap in place in a stream which is rapidly picking up? I think we need to address those questions in a little more detail, which is why I have today on the show Anupam Manur and Nikhil Kumar, who are joining us. Welcome to the India development debate. Nikhil, let me start with your take on the reason for a cap, a 30% cap. Do you think it's necessary?
Hi, Tamanna. I hope you're doing well. Long time. On the cap, I think generally, if I were to think about it from an end consumer's perspective, I would expect that this shouldn't affect my experience and my choice to use an app, which is probably whatever that I choose to use, whether it's a Phone Pay or a Google Pay. I should not be limited to choices as a customer. So as a customer, I don't like this 30% cap, because it gives me some sort of uncertainty, because I don't know if the app that I'm going to be using will run out of quota to complete my transaction or not. So I think we need to see what is the actual procedural guidelines that NPCI is coming up with, and how the players are going to be incentivized in implementing this. Because one thing that it should not impact is the end customer experience, because that's one thing that's working really well for UPI today.
So Nikhil, and here's the question: will it lead to a greater failure rate of transaction? So, for example, I want to look at it from the customer experience for 1 second. For example, if you're one of the customers on the two most popular platforms, and now WhatsApp Pay is going to come into the mix, and your platform or your TPAP has crossed that 30% threshold, is there a greater chance of failure rate of transaction? Will it make no impact at all? What happens if you are the customer and your transaction has crossed that 30% threshold?
Yeah, so like I said, it definitely puts some level of uncertainty for me as an end customer. This could probably push me as a customer to not have just one app and probably have two apps. Because if one of the apps is actually running out of quota, then I might be forced to use another app, which I don't want to. I don't think it has any direct correlation to say that there will be more failure of transactions, but I can definitely say that there will be some customer experience, the delightful customer experience that these apps are able to deliver today probably might be at risk because of this uncertainty. For example, imagine this experience, I go to Phone Pay and I'm trying to make a bill payment, and then Phone Pay suddenly tells you, hey, I've run out of my quota on UPI, so you can't transact anymore. And that just seems a horrible consumer experience if you think about it. And all of this is coming at a cost of me doing nothing. I mean, there's no fault of mine as a customer.
Yeah, no, you already have consumer experiences where sometimes it takes 5 to 7 days, the payment doesn't go through, and then it comes back to your account, etc. Anupam Manur, I'm trying to understand what the upside is. So NPCI in its release said they want to do this for consumer safety, as this entire platform has more and more users. How will you ensure safety by putting in a cap? I'm trying to understand who this benefits and why.
Yeah, this is probably a tough question to ask me, because I personally believe that this is entirely unnecessary when it comes to, especially, they're trying to tackle systemic risk. That is, if one player gets too big and handles too many transactions, and if that particular system goes down, then there will be a lot of people who will be affected by it. If you take that justification and slightly start peeling away, you will find that you will not find much justification for it. One, as Nikhil kind of touched upon it, a lot of consumers already multi-home, right? That is, that they have more than one app on their phones anyway. I have about 4 apps for doing UPI payments. And so if that might be on the one extreme, but there'll be others who have at least 2. So if one fails, the other is okay. The second aspect, which is really puzzling, is that this applies to only third-party apps. Now, according to me, there is an equal probability that let's say an SBI UPI app or a Canara Bank UPI app can fail as well. So limiting this entire rule to third-party apps makes no sense. I mean, if you're worried about systemic failure or failure of sorts, then you should apply to all UPI apps. And third, and I think this is something which is overlooked quite often, UPI, which is built by, it's a UPI stack, which is built by NPCI, is itself a monopoly, right? There is no competition there. So that entire stack can fail, which means, there's a bigger risk there. So if you want to de-risk in terms of payments, you should be looking at that aspect the most, right? In terms of risk, I think, there'll be uncertainty for individuals in terms of whether the app will work or not, but at least individuals, end consumers like me, can multi-home, that is, can have multiple apps. But I think the bigger effect will be based on small merchants, right? Merchants who will have
My
one
point
QR
is,
code.
it's still new for a lot of people. A lot of people are still adapting. Sure, but we're still adapting to digital payments overall. It's increasing at a huge space, but we're still in the stage of adapting to these things. Do we really want hurdles in our way? I just have one quick question for Nikhil. Of course, for TPAs, it's where is the incentive to grow your business if you're going to get penalized once you cross 30%? Is there any upside to this? I'm trying to find one sort of good reason why NPCI would do this and how it would really add to any kind of safety mechanism or measure. Do you have any response to that?
Yes, I think this whole idea of, third-party apps should be kind of restricted from transactions. I think, when UPI originally designed, there was actually no such rule, right? This is actually a recent fear. This started after, if you remember, Tamanna, the Yes Bank fiasco that happened last year. Since Yes Bank was one of the principal sponsors of PhonePe, and because Yes Bank was put into moratorium by RBI, and all the systems were down, all PhonePe users were not able to do any transaction on the app, and thereby it brought down the UPI network by whatever 30-35% of market share that PhonePe owned at that time. And this is probably the first time when this whole discussion about the risk of all customers being on one particular platform started coming about. And as Anupam was saying, there is no, evidence to really say that by putting this cap, that the systematic risk is being removed from a technology point of view. I would actually argue that if you really want to think about benefit, I think this is the first time an open business like this is being regulated in India, right? So it's like saying, you can do e-commerce business in India, but it can only have 30% of transactions of the total e-commerce volume that happens in India. So in some sense, it's kind of a dangerous precedence. Or in another way, you could argue that this is a little bit of the protectionist, regime that we have, like the way we have in China, where China actually restricts, international companies or, different people to actually come and participate in the ecosystem. And this is, in some sense, one could argue is actually helping the local entrepreneurs, because if today we know that there is a natural monopoly that's established in UPI, because 40% with PhonePe, maybe 35% with Google Pay, and so on and so forth. So one can, if you are an entrepreneur, maybe you can actually think about it in some way that a big company is never going to be more than 30%, so they'll always be capped at that. And thereby, you could now think about having whatever, some X percentage of, market share that you can capture. Apart from this, I really don't think that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if it makes sense for us to get into a protectionist regime. Anyway, I'm right out of time, but I want to thank Anupama and Nikhil both for joining in and giving us some perspective on this very crucial policy measure that we will continue to follow.